Okay, we start today Ches Amud Aleph on the top, exactly on the...
Going to give us a 30-second preview
Yeah.
of what we're doing today?
Today we're going to learn about knives, and it starts with a knife that's hot, and then we get into a knife that's used for Avodah Zarah, and then we talk about a knife that's treif, then we talk about the sheikh not using his sheikh knife to cut other things, and okay,
Cool.
big stuff. The ladies go crazy about the knives. So, I cut the onion, I cut the thing.
Take care. I just checked.
That's right. But there's a big confusion. The reason why there's a big confusion is because there's machlekes in it. And they hear one thing, and then they hear another thing, and then, so I don't get it. Okay, Amar Reb Zera Mishmuel. Reb Zera says in the name of Shmuel, Libein Sakin. Someone heats up a knife. Libein is like, he makes it white, but it means he makes it very, very hot. Like kashes it, sort of. V'shachet ba, and then he shechts. So he's shechting with a hot knife. So Reb Zera says shchitas ksheira. The shchita is kosher. Why is it kosher? It burnt its way through the neck of the animal. So the Gemara says, Reb Zera says, chidu the koydem lelibuna, that the sharpness came before the heat. Well, the knife is sharp at one edge, so that incision comes before the heat of the knife. So I guess you can imagine that the more mass, in the olden days, they didn't have steel, so the knives were thick. So one edge they had to sharpen it down, but that thin edge didn't really have the heat there. That thin edge was the cooler part of the knife, but that was sharper and cooler. So the sharpness cut through, made the incision, and the thicker part, that was the hot part, that came afterwards. First came the cut. Now, what the Gemara is really saying here, okay, let's go a drop further. The Gemara asks, what about while it's cutting, the sides of the knife are burning parts of the two pipes.
Right.
There's the trachea and the esophagus.
Right.
So the rule is that if there is a hole in the esophagus, so the animal is treifa, even if it's the smallest hole, even the smallest hole. So here, in order for the shechita to be kosher, you need to cut through the trachea and most of the esophagus. While he's cutting through the esophagus, which he's burning, the side of the knife is making a little hole on the side. So although the shechita is valid, but the burning part is going to turn the animal into a treifa because he didn't finish the shechita. So Taisus over here says that if b'shash shechita, at the time of the shechita, the veshed is getting a hole in it, the veshed is the esophagus, it could become usher, because the Gemara is asking here that the heat of the knife could be burning a hole while he's doing the shechita. And shechita can only be from the sharpness, not from the heat.
But it's true, but it's cutting before it's burning a hole.
Right.
So,
The problem is
so
that he's
it
not
doesn't matter.
finished cutting the full thing that he needs to.
Uh-huh.
And as he's cutting
It's
up
creating a
or
hole.
down, whichever way
You
he's
can
cutting,
ask- you can
but
ask
it's
every
burning
time.
at the...
You can ask every time you shecht. Before you shecht the roy, you shecht to the mute. You're making a hole.
No, but that is the shechita. That's part of it. Here, you're burning. Here, it's not coming not from the shechita.
All right.
Yeah,
It's still toch yado. I mean, it's still with the same movement.
right. But
So
but
you
that
have
would
to
again
complete
that would
the
only be the shechita aspect of it. But the problem is here you have another aspect, that the knife is boiling hot, and it's burning the animal. So the shechita aspect is fine. You're moving, but the heat of it is a problem. So the Gemara says, Bais shechita mirvach ravach. The Bais shechita spreads out as you cut. It spreads. It's like bounces off. It springs back. It expands. The Chassam Sofer, he was a student of Reb Nosson Adler, right? Reb Nosson Adler was by the Hafla, Reb Shmelka of Nicholsburg. So Chassam Sofer says he heard in the name of Reb Shmelka that the Hafla that he on Purim he was saying this Gemara, and he said that how does Reb Zera know this?
Oh, because he's the one who shechted the other.
Because Rabbi shechted Reb Zera, he felt how the knife. So some sefer goes to elaborate if that's possible that the Hafla really said something like this. And, okay, Ibailu. Amen. Ibailu. They have a question. A little bit off topic. Liben shpud v'hikabay. Let's say someone heats up a skewer, a spit, something that's used for roasting, and he hits someone with it, so it's boiling hot, and at the same time he's using it to hit. So there's two things that are happening. He's getting a bang and he's getting a burn. The Gemara's question is, which one comes first, the bang or the burn? So, and what is it relevant for? It's relevant for mishum shchin nidon. Shchin is a boil. We're talking about tzaras. Or mishum michva, or mishum michva nidon, or is it considered a burn? The Gemara's my nafkamina. They have the same halacha. If someone gets a piece of tzaras on a boil, or if he gets tzaras on a burn, it's the same halacha.
Right.
Look at the Tanyas, it says in the Braisa, Shchin u'michva metamin v'shavua echad. A boil and a burn that have tzaras, the way it works is that normally tzaras, a person is quarantined for 1 week. They check it. If not, they don't see anything. They quarantine him again for a second week. By Shchin u'michva, he's quarantined for 1 week. And after 1 week, if nothing happened, no hair that would show signs of impurity or no spreading, then he becomes pure. So, Taisus points out that when it says metamin b'shvu echad, it really means to say mitarin b'shvu echad, that he becomes pure. We're on 8a. He becomes pure after 1 week. B'shnei simanim, and there are two signs that make him impure. Maybe that's why he uses the word metamin, because b'sar lavan, if there's a white hair that grows inside the boil or the burn, u'b'pisayin, and if it spreads. So v'lamachil kanakasav. So why does the Torah divide it into two sections, two different halachas, if it's the halacha is exactly the same by both of them? L'ay Hashem start from zemzeh, to say that they don't combine one to another. You see, the size of tzaras is the size of a gris. A gris is a split bean. Now, if you have half a bean, half a split bean, if you have split the other way, right? If you have if you have half of this bean that's split, the size of half a bean, which is a shrin, and the size of half of one, which is a michva, a burn, so they don't combine to one gris of tzaras. Vitanya, and it was taught in a Bais. Actually, they say on the side it's supposed to be Tanan, and it was taught in a Mishnah. Ezu shchin ve'ezu michva. What is the difference of shchin and a michva? Laka be'etz. If someone is hit with a piece of wood, be'evan, with a stone. Be'gefes. Gefes is a residue from an olive press. Or actually, usually it's the peels that they generate a heat as they decay, sort of like the heat that comes from compost. Like steam, the breakdown.
Combustion.
Yeah, the breakdown of the generates a heat. B'chamei Tveria, or from the springs of Tveria. Anything that doesn't come from fire, from actual fire, la'asuye, and this is coming to include aver me'ikare, lead that's taken from its source, I guess means in the ore. So over there it could generate heat, but it's not a fire heat. But so that would be zehu shchin, that would be a boil. The ezu mechva, what's a burn? Nichve begacheles, if he touches a coal. Beremetz is ashes that still have embers in them. Besid, or it's limestone. Besid reteach, hot limestone. That's also like used in fertilizer things. Gufsis is also gypsum, which is also used in fertilizer. These are things that gufsis reteach, also something that could be hot. B'chol davar ba machmasar, anything that comes from heat. I guess it was heated up. That's the issue. La'asuye chamei ya'ar, to include something that's heated with fire. Zui michva, this is considered a burn. Utanya, and it was taught in a brisa. Shchinu michva. There's shchin and a boil and a burn. Im shchin koidem lemichva, if the shchin came first. And then he got a burn on the shchin. So batal michva is a shchin. You see, the only thing in the by the shchita, when we were discussing a hot knife, we were looking for which one came first, because that would do the shchita. When we're talking about tzaras, we're looking for which one comes second, because whichever one comes second is going to nullify the first one. So if he gets a burn on a boil, we consider it a burn, because the boil was first. The burn takes over. The one that's second takes. The michva kedemes l'shchin, if the burn came before the shchin. So batal shchin, if the burn came before the shchin, so batal shchin is a michva. The shchin takes over the michva and it nullifies the burn.
Because whatever is on the top is always the
Right.
more important.
Right.
Because that's what
That's
the Kohen sees. The Kohen
Right.
sees the top.
So what if somebody's in those 7 days, and then while he's waiting, he goes and he burns himself on purpose, then he goes back to the Kohen?
Yeah, it would be. You'd have to start over.
Coins are very sharp. They know that business.
Sharp as a knife?
No, but it would be nullified. It would be. Okay,
I've
v'hacha.
seen it all.
V'hacha hechidami. Over here, what are we dealing with? Kegoin dehavi bechatzi gris shchin miikara. He has a half a gris of a shchin. V'libin shpud. He takes a skewer that's very hot. V'hikabay, and he hits him. V'nafak bechatzi gris acher. And now he has another half a gris
Next to it.
So do we say, what's the din? Chabata kadem, did the bang come first? And vasi havla mavat leila chabata, and then the burn, the heat comes and nullifies the bang. So v'habli shchinu michva, v'lei mitzdarfen. Now he has a boil and a burn, and they don't combine. Oy dilmar, do we say havla kadem, the burn came first? Vasi chabata mavat leila havla, and comes along the bang, and it takes away the burn. And so havli shchinu shchinu mitzdaref. Very interesting. Tashima, come and listen. We have to bring a proof to the law of tzaras. Damar Rab Zera says in the name of Shmuel, Amar Shmuel, Liben Sakin v'shachet ba, exactly the
Liben.
case.
Good timing.
That he heats up a knife and he shechts. Shchitasik sheira. The shchit is good. Why? Chiduda kaidem lilibuna. The sharpness, the contact, comes before the heat. Al machabata kadem. Obviously, the bang comes before the heat. So what would that mean for us? That would mean that it would be considered a burn regarding tzaras. So he had a boil, and right next to it he has a burn, not a boil, because the contact came first, the impact came first, and then the heat. And the heat is what it would take over. So the Gemara explains chidud shiny. Says no. When you're talking about something sharp, so the sharpness comes before the heat. But when you're talking about something that's blunt, and you're getting a bang, so someone is getting a bang with something that's blunt. So then it could be the heat comes first. It's no proof from something that's sharp. Like we said, the sharpness doesn't have all the heat because it gets thinner there. Where it's thinner, it could be it's already cooled off. It's the thicker part that hasn't. Tashma, come and listen. Libein shpud v'hikebai. It's mamish the case. Someone takes a skewer, a spit, and he heats it up until it's extremely hot, and he hits someone with it. Niden by mishum michvas eish. It says clearly it's considered a burn. We had this whole kasha, we explained it and everything. We have a brisa that says clearly what the story is. It's considered a burn. Alma chabata kadem. It must be that the bang comes first and the burn comes after. That's why it's considered a burn. Gemara says no. Hasam nami de barze mivraz. Over there it's considered a burn because he used it to stab him. He used it to poke. He didn't use it to bang. So as a poke, the Gemara says, the hainu chidud. That's the same thing as the sharpness. By the sharpness, the the thin part always comes before the heat. The sharpness comes first. So here also he's using it as a knife because he's using it to poke, not to bang. Now that's the way the Gemara is written. It's very clear. However, Rashi says the Barzayu Mivraz. He says that he uses it to poke, but there's no bang here. There's only heat. So, what are we saying here? There's no bang. What does it mean, Dahainu Chidud? Dahainu Chidud, that's the sharpness. That was exactly the opposite. Chidud meant that there is a bang, or not. There is an impact, but that comes first. Rashi says there's no impact here. Rashash says that Rashi didn't have the last two words of the Gemara. Dahainu Chidud. That's the way to resolve this. Okay.
Why Rashi is coming out with the opposite?
Rashi
conclusion?
says the ein kan chabata ela hevel.
So it's the opposite of what we just said.
Yeah, I mean the answer is the same. He's just saying that there is. You can't say the hainu chidud if there's no chabata. Chidud means that the chidud comes first. Rashi says there's no chidud. There's nothing. There's no. Okay, whatever. It comes out the same. That we don't have an answer to our question if there is a bang and heat. Which one comes first? All we know is what happens by a knife, or we know by a poke, that it's considered that the heat comes second by a knife. That's what we would know. Amar Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman says in the name of Amar Rabbi Baravua, in the name of Rabbi Baravua, Sakin shel avedus kechavim, the knife of an idolater is used for idolatry. Mutter lishchit, but you're allowed to use it for shechting. But you're not allowed to use it to cut meat, to treber.
This knife was used in the Avodah Zarah process, or was used by someone who?
No, it's actually used for Avodah Zarah itself. They used it. They took it from the church.
So isn't everything in Avodah Zarah asur b'ana?
Asur b'ana. Here, there's a chiddush. There's a chiddush here.
It could be ma'aleh b'kedusha.
No, you can't.
There's certain things, the way that it's treated is by not using it. Only very holy tzaddikim. Mutter lishchit ba. Why are you allowed to shecht? Because mekalkalhu. It's not considered having a benefit, because when you have an animal, the animal is very valuable. First of all, it has potential for a lot of things. You can use it for work. You could also shecht it if you want. But the price that it has is much higher than after you have a dead animal, the shechted animal. The live animal is worth much more. So when you use a knife for Avodah Zarah, over here there's a special thing. It's not that Avodah Zarah itself, but you're using something that you're not. It's considered that you're not getting benefit from it because it's going down in value. Your animal is going down in value. However,
Very shady.
yeah. We didn't start with Avodah Zarah, but at the end of Avodah Zarah, this is where it's. But you're not allowed to use it for meat. Why? Because masakinu. Because when you cut up after the animal is dead, and you cut up the meat, then the meat is an improvement because now you have different pieces. Amar Rava says, it's possible that someone shechting, it's actually going to be forbidden. Why? The mesukenes. The animal was old and dying. It wasn't considered a treifa yet, but it was a type of animal that you want to shecht it fast before it dies on you or before it's considered a treifa. So then you're actually you're improving the value of the animal. So that would be awesome. And sometimes that cutting, or trebering, cutting up the meat, would actually be permissible. Why? Ba'atmi the kaimin l'korbana. We're talking about a thigh of an animal that could have been used as a gift. And then you cut it up. You can't give this as a gift. It's already chopped. So it had more value as, just imagine a cake. You buy a birthday cake that's already cut up. You can't buy a cake that's cut up. So there's pieces of meat that could be used as a gift. But here, if it's cut up into strips for schnitzel or something, that's not. You can't give that. So you decrease the value So therefore, it's considered makalkel. You're not getting a benefit from this knife. The Gemara has a question. What about the knife is treif? On the knife, you have the fats, all the non-kosher flavors and everything that's on the knife. Rashi says, well, when you're shechting now, very good. We have two cases here. One case is that you're cutting meat. One case is that you're doing shechita. The shechita we said normally was permissible. The cutting of the meat we said was normally forbidden because it's an improvement. Rashi says, even by the shechita he's talking about, afagavdu makalka. Even though by shechita we said that it was permissible, why should you be allowed to do the shechita? You're going to have the forbidden fat that's on the side of the knife that's going to make the animal non-kosher. The Maharsha explains that Rashi is only choosing one case, but there are other cases that he could be referring to. What about, we said that cutting the meat is forbidden. Why did we say that cutting the meat is forbidden? Because it's misakin. I have another problem. It's going to be forbidden, which we never mentioned. And Rashi also says, Shamnunas di Surah de Nevelas, that it's Nevela. There's really another problem. The other problem is that the knife absorbed flavors, not just from Nevela, but it absorbed flavors from Takruvas Avodah Zarah, from things that were offered to Avodah Zarah, that's also treif. See, we think like, it's kosher, not kosher, but there's another aspect here, that it could be that this animal was used as a sacrifice for Avodah Zarah, the previous animal that this knife was used for. It absorbed flavors from Avodah Zarah, not just treif flavors, but there's a second prohibition of the flavors from Avodah Zarah. The Bachram in Australia, they were learning smicha. They learned all the halachas. Anyway, they went for Pesach to India. So in India, they knew the halachas. They went into some shop. They had the guy kasher his things, and they had the rice and everything, and they considered it kosher. But they forgot one law. They didn't learn the laws of Avodah Zarah. And in India, a lot of the things are offerings. So they didn't know about that. So the kalim were perfectly kosher, but they didn't know that there's a portion, that's why the mashkiach.
But they don't kill cows.
They don't kill cows, so it was kosher. Everything was kosher.
The cows.
The mashkiach has to know a lot more than just this specific law, like how to kasher. He has to know like the whole, everything that could come up. So no Shabbos, he has to know, Okay, so the Gemara answers, why didn't we mention anything about treif? He said, bechadasha. We're talking about a new knife. A new knife. A new knife. We said we have a knife of Avodah Zarah. Chadasha, if it's a new knife, bein l'Rabbi Yishmael, bein l'Rabbi Akiva, whichever opinion you're going to take, which is based in the Gemara Avodah Zarah, Mishamshi Avodas Kechavim, Hein Mishamshi Avodas Kechavim, Hein Mishamshi Avodas Kechavim. Am I reading this wrong? Mishamshi Avodas Kechavim, Hein Mishamshi Avodas Kechavim, Eina Masur Mad Sheyavdu. Misham She'avedes Kechavim, and that's after reading. Misham She'avedes Kechavim, it's only Misham She'avedes Kechavim, it's not an Avodah Zarah itself. And if it's not an Avodah Zarah itself, both Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva hold that it's only forbidden until it's used. So how did we just say that we have a new knife, and therefore there's no problem of treif, or takruvas, or nevela, whatever there is? If that's the case, then it's not a knife of Avodah Zarah either. Why do you say you're not allowed to use it? Because it's misakin or mekalkel or which are all of those things. It's not a knife of Avodah Zarah. It was never used. There's two answers. Iba yasema the pasuk begavza. We said that there's no issue of treif or nevela or something or takruvas. Why not? Not that it was a new knife. It was used before, but it wasn't used for an animal. It was used to cut a branch. The branch was used probably for the wood, for the firewood, for the Avodah Zarah, to burn the sacrifice. Pasuk begavzel Avodas Chaim. Yiba Yasema. You have another teretz. B'Yeshena. It's actually a older knife. It was used already. And welcome. Shalibna ba'ar. We're talking about that it was kashered. The knife was kashered. So we don't have any issue of treif, nevela. The only issue we have is it a knife of avodah zarah? Because the knife was kashered.
And you
Okay.
can't kasher on avodah zarah.
It doesn't become kosher like that. He has to be mevatel it. Yes, this is like my India story. That they kashered everything, but it was still avodah zarah. It was still that they weren't allowed. Okay. Itmar. There was a statement of Amiroim. Hashoichet b'sakin shalev dekechavim. Someone shechts with a knife of goyim. Now we're just talking here about a knife that's not an avodah zarah knife, just a knife that's not a kosher knife. Rav Amar Kailef, Rabbi Barbachan Amar Midiach. There's two opinions. One opinion is that you have to peel away the area of the shechita. In other words, because you used a knife at that edge, a knife that wasn't kosher, so you have to peel away part of that area. You can't eat all the way till the end. You have to peel away a little bit. Mm-hmm. The other opinion is that you only have to wash it off.
What kind of knife is this one?
It's just a treifa knife. Now, let me point out that there's a machlekes here in Rishonim. Tosfos clearly says that it's a ben yomai. The knife is a ben yomai. That means it was used for something not kosher within 24 hours, which means that Tosfos learns this Gemara that there's a concern that there's a flavor that's absorbed in the knife, that when we're shechting, that flavor could transfer over to the area of the shechita. Rashi says that, or the other Rishonim say that he says Shabbalasham. No, it apparently there's another issue here that it doesn't have to do with the ben yom if it's used in the last 24 hours. The other issue is that it could be that knives are not washed properly, and even though normally utensils are cleaned, but knives are not cleaned right. People don't clean them carefully, maybe because it doesn't matter. They just cut and whatever. It's a little bit
because women don't use them. It's mostly men.
It could be, but there could be a grease on the knife. Could be they don't want to. It doesn't get cleaned well because they don't want to cut themselves. They just give it a rinse, and really there's a grease on the knife that doesn't come off with just a rinse. It needs to be wiped off, or scraped off the grease. So there's a second issue, but there's a machlekes in the Rishonim what we're dealing with. That's why we always have this confusion. A lady used a clean knife to cut something, to cut bread. It was a fleshik knife. She used it to cut bread, but it was clean. But it was a knife, fleshik knife. Can she put cheese on the bread? All of these depends how the Rashi or Tosfos depends what our issue is with knives. If it's an absorption in the knife that we're concerned is coming out during the pressure, or when you're pressing, so then that could be an issue here. But if we're concerned about something that's on the outside of the knife, well, this is a clean knife. There's no concern. That's why there's always this confusion.
Is this knife used for avodah zarah?
No, it's just shel oivdei kechavim. It belongs to a guy.
So when would you use before?
Sakin shel avodas kechavim
So Eily kechavim means
is the
people.
person. Yeah. Okay, so we have a machlekes between Rav and Rabbi Barbachana. If you want to remember this, Rabbi Barbachana is Rav's great nephew. Rav's not great nephew. Rav's cousin once removed.
What kind of families are these? They always argue with each other.
As opposed to real families, it never.
Look, Rabbeinu Tom's Tzimmerman.
My grandmother tells me that in Europe, it was a regular thing for arguments to take place at the Shabbos table. She said in America, it's not acceptable. But in Europe, all the time, it was, that was part of the culture. They would argue about anything. About anything. It was part of the culture. And here it's not acceptable. We get like very...
Jackie Mason.
Those days...
Where do you think vaudeville came from? And like that's the town. They're thrown over the table.
It's a different culture. Okay, Lema B'Hakim Efligi. We have a machlekes here between Rav and Rabbi Barbachana. Mar Savar Beis HaShchita Tzainin. One of them holds that the Beis HaShchita is cold. You know, the area that he's shechting is cold, and that's why you only have to rinse it, because the transfer doesn't penetrate into that area because it's cold. Another one holds that the Bais Shchita is hot, so the transfer goes in, the flavor, the taste that's on the knife, the grease that's on the knife possibly gets absorbed into the Bais Shchita, and it needs to be sliced off with klipa, a peel of it, the edge. How big is a klipa? It's the amount that you can cut, that you can take it in one slice. That's a klipa. You can take it in one slice. Ask the boys that learn smicha, how big is a kedei klipa? Because there's a kedei klipa and there's a kedei natila. Kedei natila is the size of a finger. It's thicker than that. This is the size that you can take in one slice. The Gemara says, that's not necessarily the machlekes. The kuli alma, it could be everyone holds Bais Shchita reiteach. Everyone holds that the area of the shechting is hot. Manda Amar Koilef, the one that says that you have to peel, shaper, it's hot. Manda Amar reiteach. What about the one that says you only have to rinse it? I did it 3D Simanim Lafuki Dam Leibali. The Bais Shchita. Right? The one that says you have to wash it, to rinse it. Why does he say you have to rinse it? It's hot. He says this is a special exemption. Because the blood is spurting out by the neck, so therefore there's less absorption that's coming in. It's pushing it out. It's not going to absorb it into that area. The Rajba says that we're not really dealing with heat. That's the heat that would make something treif. Heat that makes something treif is yatsi ledespai.
Like the knife that was before was used, that was hot.
That was a hot knife.
Seriously.
Here we're switching it. So here we're talking about that there is a heat. And the heat's coming together with the pressure. There's other things that are happening here, but it's not the regular heat. No one's claiming here that it's 110, 115 degrees at the place of the shchita, that whatever Yatze Ledespa is. Okay.
Yeah, otherwise it's machlokes and metzius.
And also another issue would be that anything that's shamnunis, anything that's fat, that's oily, if there's any heat, it gets absorbed. It's mifafeya bekuli. It gets absorbed into the whole thing. It would make the whole animal treif if it's hot. You can't say that it's only a kedei klipa. So it must be that the reticha here is not the same thing. Ikadamri, there are those that say exactly the opposite. The kuli alma beis hashchita tzainen. Everyone holds that the place of the shchita is cold. Manda marmidiach shaper. The one that says that you rinse it, it's cold. Just rinse it off, no problem. Manda markoilef. The one that says you have to peel away. Agav duchka de sakina bala. Because of the duchka, the sakina, the pressure of the knife, it like pushes it, and it pushes it in. So that's why over here it's different. Even though normally something that's cold, you only